Hi everybody, I'm Marcia and I'm here with CC. Hi CC.
Hello everybody, nice to see you all.
Fantastic. We're going to be doing one of our catch-up sessions today, and we are looking at our histories and how we got to where we are today. And so I wanted to ask Carol about the pivotal things that have happened along her journey that have led her to where she is today, and what makes them so significant for her. So over to you.
Thank you, Marcia. My working career started a little while ago, has to be said. But the significant markers in my life were when I had a very early divorce and moved away from my hometown. So I was married very young and didn't need to be, but we did, because that was the thing to do at the time, and we'd been together a long time from our school days. So accepting that that was a mistake and moving on, I decided to, after very few short weeks, just move out of my hometown and start again. I was very frightened because this was all new, moving away from home. I'd only been abroad once when I was 17 on a holiday. So this was, oh wow. So off I went, and not very far, just up to our main city of Newcastle upon Tyne, to work up there. And I did do for some time. It was new experience, being away and working away, and not sort of being with my friends, having to make new ones and having to learn and live a different life. Even though it wasn't many miles away, it was still learning something new. And I started to work for Rank Organisation in the hospitality area. And it was, yeah, interesting. And I learned a lot, and I met a lot of very, very interesting people. But it was a huge learning curve. And the pivotal thing about all of this part of my life was the learning curve, and I was out of my comfort zone totally. No idea how to handle that. Knew how to get along with people to a degree. Interested in what I was doing, which made life easier. But so nervous about this navigational area in my life where I'd never done this before. So, excuse me, I did work there for some while. And my divorce came through, and then, it was sort of freedom time. I could move on and do what I liked. The next section.
Carol, before you move on, what were you doing in that role then?
Oh, sorry. Well, mainly I went. I was doing hotel reception. That was what I went to do, and thinking the reason I chose the path that I'd never done before, but this would give me some opportunity to perhaps move around. Give me open up some doors and make it easier for me to move somewhere else and do something else, or something similar in the hospitality trade, but in another area, in another place. So I'd experience living somewhere different. So that was what in that instance spurred me on. I was quite surprised initially when I was offered the job, because I'd never done anything like this before. Maybe my boss at the time saw some potential there. I've got no idea.
Must have done.
Yeah, because, excuse me, sorry, I've got a frog in my throat today. I suppose I was quite interested in people and what people did, and so obviously with the guests, we used to be chatty, but obviously professional and one step back, and but greeting people, making people feel comfortable, making people feel important, was one of the things my boss said that I was reasonably good at, and the importance of doing the job and making them feel welcome when they came in, and learning about all the packages that we did, because it wasn't just a hotel with rooms. It we did banqueting and holidays and all sorts of things. So that was good to learn, most certainly. And I made a good number of friends, which I'm happy and delighted to say to this day I still have. I was living in the hotel, and I eventually moved into the home, the family of one of these friends, as the lodger, if you like, but became the babysitter and, just became one of the family, really. And it was wonderful. And I could still get home at the weekends or when I was off to see my family. So that,
What was
that
it like living in the hotel?
Well, it was different. The first night I remember putting the lights out when I was in my room, because we all had rooms in a certain part of the building that nobody had access to but us. I felt like I was in a box, because just a modern bedroom, square bedroom with a bed and dressing table and various things, but nothing. I hadn't got to the stage where I put things on the wall, like the posters of the Walker Brothers or Eric Clapton or anything like that. I just got my room with painted walls, magnolia, I think it was the color. So yeah, it was different, and it took me a long time to get to sleep because I was tired, but I was anxious. But anyway, ultimately made some great mates with the girls, and we were out a lot after that. And
how old would you have been at that point?
Not very. I was married at 19, separated after 18 months.
So young, Carol.
So young. I know. And I suppose then I was just before my 21st birthday, because I remember the chef making me my 21st birthday cake.
Wow.
And I remember that very clearly. So it must have been before, because the marriage broke up very early. I didn't stay to let the grass grow under my feet. I thought, this is the opportunity I've been given to get on and do something. So yeah, I must have been there certainly for my 21st. And again, like I say, just met a lot of very interesting people and did a lot of good, lovely things. We used to have weekends away or for days off. We'd go out for the day, or, so I got to know the areas quite well as well, which is good for me now, because I still go back home and still go out for the day and enjoy that. But yeah, that was really a changing moment for me, to realize that it wasn't that I didn't need anybody else, Marcy. I'm not saying that, because we all need people. But I was actually getting out there on my own. And although I was being supported by all my new friends, I was very lucky, because I really met some very nice people. It could have not been that way, but I was lucky. Then I just had the confidence then. It was exciting then. So what was I going to do next? So within the company I worked for, a role came up in Aviemore in the north of Scotland.
Yeah, know it well.
Wonderful. So I said to one of my girlfriends, I wouldn't mind applying for that. She said, well, actually, Carol, she said, we don't want to see the back of you, which is very sweet of her. But she said, it's ideal for you because it's banqueting sales. And then the hotel did their own holiday packages, 4-day skiing holidays and 4-day Christmas holidays and, all that sort of thing. So it was all about that. And anyway, I applied and invited for interview. So off I tropped up to from Newcastle up to Scotland. Had the interview, and I had a family. My great aunt lived in Inverness, so that wasn't a million miles away. So I had somebody on hand that I could drop in on, as opposed to Anyway, I stayed the night and came back down the next day, and that was fine. And about 48 hours, if it was that, I got a phone call from a girl called Jill Kirby. I remember that very clearly, to tell me I got the job, because she was going to be my line manager. And we've talked about firecrackers before, but by goodness, was she one? She was brilliant. She taught me so much. I went up there and I started, and again, nervous. Oh my goodness, what am I doing all this way from home, working and living, And and Jill was brilliant. You know, she was a hard taskmaster, but brilliant. I learned such a lot from her. She shared everything that she could with me. You know, she didn't hold back on stuff or information. She did what she could to help. But she made it very clear that this was my own role. It was developing because it was a new role, and it had to be developed by me. And although she was there to help, you know, so we did the Highland Games and huge Highland shows on the grounds in Aviemore in the hotel, the Colin Bridge where I worked. We had, I did the skiing package holidays, and every now and again, one of the execs from our London office would ring up as a potential customer, testing the water to see if...
Like mystery shopper sort of
scenario.
Like that.
They weren't known as that at the time.
Yeah.
They were known by a lot of other names at the time, and it wasn't mystery shopper. Fortunately, I was obviously, when they phoned, I was obviously firing on all 4 cylinders, which I hope I was every time anybody rang. But yeah, I got some good reviews from that, as not intentionally. They didn't put it on what we didn't have, Facebook or anything then. But you know, I got some good reviews, and that was great because it made me want to do more.
Yes.
That pushed me on. That was another pivotal change, because that was encouraging me and taught me the lesson of sharing and making sure that your team knew as much as you did, you know, or knew what they needed to know, and any more support, you were there for them. So that was another change, and enjoyed doing that a lot. And one of my roles, which I used to love, and it was either Harry or Henry, I've forgotten him, was a guy that used to play the pipes. And I would invite him into the grounds of the hotel when the coaches were arriving or the holiday makers were arriving. And he would pipe everybody in up the driveway. He'd stand in the heather on the appointed spot. You stand there, please. And he would pipe people in. And then we would just make sure he had refreshments and look after him during the day in the grounds. But that was exciting. That was great. Oh, that was lovely. And it was like the early warning siren, really, because you knew as soon as he started playing, right, batten down the hatches, guys. It's gonna be full on. And it was fun, but it was great fun, Marcia, as well. I learned a lot, but great fun. And we used to have film crews and people making movies up there. And this went on for a long time. And one particular day, there was this movie being made, and one of the people that was staying up there that was in the movie, an actor by the name of Fraser Hines, he used to be in Emmerdale, that's it. He was talking to me one day, and we're chatting away and about lots of things, and we all got on well with all the people in the crew, and you know, that was fine. And I was chatting to him one day, and he said to me, more or less, in a nutshell, is this it for you? Is this, you know, is this where you're going? Is this your ultimate, you know, is there nothing else? He didn't say is there nothing else for Carol Woods at the time, because that was my name. But that was more or less what he's saying. The questions we ask now, really. And I said, I don't know. I said, I'm not really sure really what I want to do, to be fair. I'm enjoying my time here. It was very hot summer, I remember that year, but a very harsh winter. And I stayed 2 years. But it got me thinking, Marcia, it got me thinking, what, you know, why has this been said to me now? There's a reason, you know, reason for everything. What? And then I started to assess what I was doing and how much further I could go with it. And then I realized that I needed to make a move. So, you know, that long story short, bless him, he probably made such a difference that he'd never, that pivotal moment and that swizzle in your life where you start, I really sat down and assessed where I was going, what I was doing. Was it worth staying there? pardon me, although it was beautiful and I made some more good friends, great. I got myself a very nice boyfriend who was Swiss, um, and he wanted to get married. And I could have ended up in Lucerne if I'd played my cards like that. But
you played your cards right.
I don't think it was playing my cards right so much as if I'd wanted it, I could have had that. But I didn't want that because I'd fallen out with the idea of being that serious with anybody, and certainly entering into another marriage was the furthest thing from my head. And but we remained friends for many, many years. Let me add that. He used to come and see my mum and dad because he got to know them and all of that. So I decided, right, let's get back to Newcastle. Let's see, just get back to a little bit of what I know, just till I make my mind up. So that's what led me on to meeting my second husband in Newcastle where I worked. And he was doing a project for what was Midland Bank at the time. And I could probably get us all struck off for saying that we had this relationship, started up with a guest, which was never allowed. But anyway, it happened. I decided when he asked me to get married to go to Sheffield, where he lived, and to start up another life. So this is the next hurdle that I came across. And
or the next chapter.
The next chapter.
The next chapter.
Yeah, it's not a hurdle. Well, the chapter that moved me on to being here in Sheffield, where I'm speaking from today. And to my father's horror, after leaving school with, several O levels and doing quite well, and that he bothered to change my schools when I was being educated because he didn't think the education was enough, I decided to walk away from my job with no job to go to. And although I did have Christopher, obviously as my future husband, my fiance, whatever, to look after me, my dad was very keen that I supported myself. And the support was very important. So he was horrified that I'd done what I'd done. He loved Christopher, thought the world of him, but, anyway, I did it.
Good on Dad, I think.
I think good old Dad, because good old Dad's ways have kept me going, and have come up to help me in numerous other times.
He didn't want to see you stuck in the kitchen, cooking, cleaning, and
that's right.
Those sorts of things. He wanted you to have your own career. And that, I think, that's brilliant.
It was the way he was, Marcia, though. He was always thinking, like when he changed my schools, because he didn't think the education was enough. I wasn't getting any homework. I wasn't doing this. I wasn't doing that. He was all for that forward, what will happen, way down the line if this doesn't happen now. What's got to be in place now is what's going to be better for her future. And I always appreciate him lots for that, appreciate what he did. So anyway, I was down here and I joined what was Brook Street Bureau, which was a job agency when I eventually came here, and went to register and to find a job. And they asked me, would I like to work on their side of the desk?
Why doesn't that surprise me?
Oh, crikey. So I said, oh, well, that sounds really interesting. I'll give it a go. We'll have a trial and I'll give it a go. And that was all right. The job was fine. There was a lot of searching papers for job ads and ringing people up and asking if, we could place somebody in their care or in the job and for a trial run and all that. And to be fair, it was all right in the beginning, but it became a bit monotonous in the end. And you got, not that you mind refusal, because it's obviously a reason, but it was more refusal than acceptance, and you got a bit fed up with that. Mm-hmm. So a job came up in the city, heading up in-store demonstrators for a company called Girls World. and I got an interview, and I went along, and I was sitting being interviewed, and the lady who was interviewing me said, when can you start? And I said, pardon. She said, can you start, soon? And I said, well, yeah, the job seems all right, and I jokingly said I could start this afternoon, so she asked me to take my coat off.
Oh dear.
Absolutely. And this
Is
is
hoping you get it off, was she?
tearing it off me. And this is one for, I want a friend of mine to watch this in particular, but this is one for the books. Her husband came in, and the door opened and banged off whatever was behind the door. And we didn't know what was wrong with him. And she just said, and this is my husband. I said, oh, hello, Mr. Beckley. And that was fine. He'd obviously been in a very bad mood. He'd been to a meeting and he hadn't got what he'd set out to get. And of course, was a very happy boy. But Julie went into the next office and literally was set up again, because Brenda, the lady who was interviewing me, who became a very good friend of mine, was doing the work. So she was the one to teach me. So there we go. And I thought, here we go again, like 5 minutes interview, and then you're behind the other side of this desk. What's going on? And I was there 10, 11 years with them. So it couldn't have all been a bad thing.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I did learn a lot. And we moved, I traveled a lot because we worked in all the big stores, the big 4 supermarkets, doing in-store demonstration. And we hired people from agencies to do Spider-Man and all that sort of thing. So it was all, it was all full on. And so yeah, I learned an awful lot there, but that was a whole different ball game for me.
Yeah.
Didn't have any idea at all about that. So I remained in Sheffield because of the work, because of that work. And although I did travel around a bit, but I decided after a while that I wanted to give up and have some time, because we could do it, we could afford to do it. And we went off to Australia with my mum and dad, and we had a great time there. And Chris and I went back to Australia for another 4 months in a very short space of time, and did some touring, which was wonderful. Learned a lot about life and how other people live out there. And then came back home, and again, over a short period of time, I decided I wanted to go back to work. So I joined this course at the Chamber of Commerce at the time, called Women Returners to Work course. And I got a placing in the NHS at what was Fulwood House, and started to work there as a trainee in HR. And I was on a 6-week trial, and on 6 weeks.
They were the days of 6 week trials. I don't think, do they do 6-week trials now? Is it like a fortnight or something?
Probably 2 days and you're out.
Yeah.
But no, 6 weeks,
Yeah.
And so at the end of 6 weeks, they called me into the office, and I thought, well, this is going to be, thanks very much, Carol. We've enjoyed having you and all of this. And I was asked if I wanted to stay. And I said, well, that's wonderful. And they said, we mean, I think the contract at the time was between 3 or 5 years or something. But it wasn't like short term now.
Yes, like it is now.
Whatever. So I did, and I became an HR officer, and I worked very closely with lots of people at the time, sadly, that were being made redundant. And they opened up a job shop in the building and put me in there. And I met a lot of people who were upset. I met a lot of people who were annoyed and upset. And I'm clear on both words, because annoyed and upset are different. Frustrated, angry, how am I going to pay my mortgage, all that sort of thing. But we did what we could for them, and I had the support of my director, of course, as well as my chief exec, which was important, Keith McLean at the time. He was marvelous with the staff. He was so supportive. And so yeah, so that I did that for quite a number of years. And equally at the end of the contract, just quickly to say that I ended up doing short-term contracts as well. And I did cancer accreditation, I did the nurse grading appeals, I did a short-term with European Health, to name but a few. But they were all great changes.
Significant projects there.
Absolutely, and taught me the biggest lesson that I could, and that's what I'm saying to the people watching this now. I know we're probably coming to the end of our time now, but just please believe in you. And it's amazing what happens when you do. And seriously, I didn't go out thinking I'm going to get these jobs and they're going to ask me to start on the day. But that happened to me 3 times. Oh. Twice on the day, and the other at the end of a 6-week proven time of working and what I was able to do, and asked to stay on working directly for them, you know, a wage packet, if you like, and on their payroll. So beyond that, I went on to do many, or not many is the wrong word, 2 in particularly significant roles, which were England-wide and Wales. And I managed, for public patient involvement, I became head of the North, which was from the borders of Scotland down to Northamptonshire. And all that from being...
Massive catchment area, that, isn't it?
Huge.
Wow.
Huge. I mean, I had a lot, and I'll stress, very, very good teams working for me, and always, you know, kept me informed, and I tried my best in my diary to get to them, to at least 2 of the areas every week, rotating. So I was with them, sat with them, and thank goodness my senior manager noticed that and made a comment about that, because she said, you're very inclusive with the people that you work with. And I said, it's important, otherwise they don't work for you. So again, people hearing this, always remember inclusion, always remember consideration.
Yeah.
And there we are. So
Fabulous.
This is the 3 areas of pivotal change, and what life taught me. Life was the big lesson, of course.
Yeah.
And
where you start out isn't necessarily where you end up in this life. Which
again, you will have hopefully learned from this conversation that that is it. You don't, whatever you plan, don't be disappointed if the plan doesn't go to plan, because whatever else is going to happen is probably better.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing all that. I mean, I know quite a bit about your background and history, but even there were parts of that, even for me, that I was unfamiliar with. You know, when you're talking about it in this way, I knew about the jobs. I wasn't aware that the way you got those jobs.
I know. Can I just add, please, at this juncture, to everybody watching, when I was at the regional office, this is where I met Marcia. And that's another pivotal change, believe, for the better.
For the better. Well, I'm glad you added that bit in. Well, thanks, Cece. We're going to sign off now, but I hope you found that, guys, interesting to learn about Carol's journey. And the next video will be looking into my pivotal
and moments. I'll be asking the question
on my journey.